Hello and welcome to this exclusive webcast on shift in background verification, TAT from weeks to hours, presented by People Matters in association with OnGrid. I'm your host, Pallavi. We are here to bring to light the challenges in background checks, be it the turnaround time or the cost involved or the accuracy of data, and also deliberate on its possible solution. Through this virtual session, we want to discuss the benefits of having an effective verification platform and how faster background checks can offer significant advantages both for the employers as well as job seekers in the modern workplace, enhancing their ability to streamline processes and make informed decisions to maintain workplace integrity. To explore the importance and advantages of accelerating background checks, we are happy to be joined by Satinder Madan, Transformation Head of Global People Operations, Wipro Limited. As the Transformation Head of Global People Operations and VGV Leader at Wipro Limited, Satinder comes with over 2 decades of expertise spanning operations, background verification, business intelligence, quality function, and robotics and smart automation. Satinder has demonstrated his prowess in robotics, process automation, and advanced Lean and Six Sigma competency, successfully leading strategic initiatives for cost reduction, revenue generation, and overall process improvement across various business units. His efforts have successfully generated multi-million dollar benefits through a series of improvement projects. Also joining us for this conversation is Piyush Peshwani, co-founder and CEO at OnGrid and eLocker, India's leading trust platforms for background checks and verifications, instant KYC and onboarding APIs, and digital ex-employees credentials. Before co-founding OnGrid and eLocker with his friend Vineet Bansal from the IIT Bombay days, Piyush was a part of the team that built and rolled out the Aadhaar platform with close to 1.4 billion people enrolled and millions of authentication and KYC transactions happening on a daily basis. Piyush is passionate of technology that creates a level playing field for people to access opportunities and achieve upward mobility in society. Very warm welcome, Satinder and Piyush.
Thanks, Pallavi.
Thank you, Pallavi, for hosting us. Yeah.
Well, before we break into the Q&A segment, it would be wonderful if we get a glimpse of how the background verification, or BGV as we are calling, landscape is shaping up. So I now request Piyush to take us through a journey of on-grid and its larger role in this whole shift. With this, I pass on the mic to you, Piyush.
Thank you, Pallavi. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a small presentation so as to give a context to everyone, and then so that the questions and answers after that they have some the context. So let me just share my screen right away. Okay. So once again, thank you, Pallavi, for hosting us, and a very warm hello to Satinder once again. Just wanted to introduce OnGrid first. We have been running this digital trust platform for the last 8 years, and what we have realized is that the landscape of background verifications is fast changing. Things are becoming more digital, paperless, and presenceless. Things became more presenceless as COVID hit and people started working in a remote manner. And the HR technology, the background verification technology, all this, all that has gone through a dynamic change in the last 7 to 8 years. OnGrid is a digital trust platform where we help HR leaders in doing background checks, verifications, digital KYC, and onboarding. And I'll be talking about that. We have run more than 200 million checks and verifications using one of our platforms. Uh, we are solving the problem of fraudulent intent, which leads to risk for organizations. Anonymity, globally, 2 billion people, that is almost one fourth of the world population, operates in a practically anonymous manner. But slowly and gradually, the unorganized economy is also getting organized with digital footprints and official formal background checks when they enter the mainstream economy. And traditionally, the verification and verification process, background check process has been very cumbersome. And we are trying to just simplify the whole experience for the HR teams as well as the employees. Uh, in order to do that, we have taken a platform approach, which means that some of the core traditional processes may remain the same. For example, if you want to go to a house and do an address verification, it must still be happening. But at the surface, you essentially get a completely digital experience where a person uploads her or his address and the verification gets completed and you see a verification report. So it's an architecture, it's a platform where you have plug and play components and you can plug superior components and weed out any inferior components. That's the platform approach that we have taken. Uh, the future of engaging with people, be it in India or globally, is going to be based on reusable, verifiable credentials. So, when something which is verified or issued by a competent authority, like for example, a previous employer or an education institute, like one can see credentials on DigiLocker, one will also be able to see education employment credentials on lockers like eLocker, and then instantly those credentials can be verified with electronic consent, and that is essentially the future which we can foresee in 3 to 4 years from now. I mean, 10 years back, we did not know that we could just pay for a coconut water by just scanning a QR code, but that has become a reality. And digital credentials is also going to become a reality, and that is what we is our understanding and belief. Uh, we are as an organization which is ISO compliant, recognized by the government of India and NASCOM. When we were a startup 8 years back, we were one of the top 3 startups at your story. We work across organizations, be it traditional organizations, be it the modern internet platforms, including sectors such as hospitality, retail, transportation, IT, ITES, financial services, etc. And we have different solutions for different sectors. One of the things as part of our learning journey that we realized is that for most of our clients, HR leaders, HR managers, talent acquisition professionals, the biggest challenge was in background check was turnaround time. So we rolled out a solution that enables background verification in 4 hours. There are more than 10, 12 very common checks that can be done in 4 hours. So what have organizations started doing? They don't wait for somebody to join. They have started running these checks pre-onboarding, because there is an element of risk if somebody joins and the background verification takes 1 week or 1 month. That risk period is there. So they have started doing pre-onboarding. Some organizations have also started doing background checks even before offer letters are issued. Of course, it cuts down the time impact significantly and also enhances compliance safety standards. Then, of course, there are some new checks, like for example, e-locker reference check. I talked about credentials. So if somebody has written something negative for an ex-employee, you can actually find that out using an e-locker reference check, and it adds a layer of safety and risk mitigation. Uh, Taking cognizance of time, I just have this last thing that I want to say. From months or weeks, BGV has gone to 4 hours. But is it going to remain at 4 hours? Well, the answer, according to me, is no. Background verification, as we know, is going to become instant. And how it will become instant? Because there will be APIs that will get integrated into the HRMS or human capital management systems. And these APIs, some of you may have heard of KYC, Know Your Customer, but these APIs will be Know Your People, KYP APIs. For example, today, some background check also implies a PAN verification, an Aadhaar verification, an employment history check, current employment verification, bank account verification, credit check. All these things will be integrated into the HR systems. And therefore, it also is an opportunity for HR systems to innovate. You don't have to do PAN verification as part of background check. It's not a background check. It's a factual input output API call. So if I am a new employee, if I join an organization, I go to the HR system, I will enter my PAN number, all my details, my name, father's name, date of birth, address, etc., will get captured into the system, and it's going to be an instant PAN KYC or PAN verification. So we think KYP APIs is the future, and all of us will slowly and gradually see this adoption happening in our respective HRMS environments, and all HRMS players will eventually have this. So yeah, 90% of BGV is going to become instant, and this is where I'll stop and let Pallavi take on from here. Thanks, Pallavi.
Well, thank you so much. Interesting thought of, reducing the TAT from weeks to hours, and then you said it will become instant. I'm sure our audiences will have a lot of questions for you and for Satinder. So, whosoever is watching and who's just joined in, a very warm welcome again. And if you have any questions for our panelists, do put them in the comment box, and we'll try to take them up at the end of this conversation. Meanwhile, we also thought of gauging the mood and the challenges that people are actually facing. So we've created a poll for everyone attending this webcast. All they have to do is to pick up one option which they feel is most relevant to them. It's very easy to take part in this poll. All you have to do is to go to menti.com and use the code which is given on the screen 187341116. So there will appear a question, and the question says, what challenges do you face with employee verifications? It could be a problem of cost or a lack of a standardized process. It could be the problem of accuracy or a problem in time, as highlighted by Piyush as well. So, can we have the poll on the screen, please? And let's see how the results pan out. And then I will then take up inputs from both my speakers. This will also act as a conversation starter because once we know what are the real problems, then we can actually get deep dive into what are the possible solutions to it. So there goes the poll, and we can see the results changing. But I think as of now, majorly it's the lack of a standardized process as well as the time process, the time consuming process. These are the major. We'll wait for a few more seconds and then see what the final results look like. So very close, the first option and the, okay, now there's a good margin between the first and the. So meanwhile, as the answers change, I'll quickly take a comment from Satinder. How do you observe these results? Is there any surprise element that you feel?
Yeah, so I think I see the numbers changing. I'm primarily focusing on turnaround time and obviously the standardized process. But to me, this is more like a tricky question because it's always a combination of all these four that we need to work on, right? While we look for a turnaround time as a prime theme, but beyond that, it is always a cost. It is always a simplified process because unless we have a simplified process, it's going to cost the experience to the candidates who are going to join us. Accuracy obviously leads to a lot of reworks here and there. I'll give you a quick instance or analogy. So we have digital, as in India, growing into that digital form of using a digital footprint across various aspects of the work life that we're doing. Now the challenge is that the services are available. We can always create an API. We can always build in. But the bigger challenge, why partners are reluctant in taking it, I think there's an adoption issue. And the reluctance is not around turnaround time. Everybody wants to enhance the turnaround time, but nobody wants to cannibalize the cost, right? Because the moment we move to APIs, we are switching the cost from a huge ton of dollars or the rupees that we spend to probably half of it right now, and then obviously it's going to go and further down as we move across and enhance those services. So that is one tricky question that I've seen when I've engaged with multiple partners, that they have the capability, but there's a reluctance to get in. And it's not the turnaround time that they don't want to do. They don't want to cannibalize the cost. But the bigger game changer is if they don't cannibalize the cost now, it's going to impact their revenue at all because the business will move to a partner who's going to serve quickly and instantly, as Piyush said, on those aspects, right? So yeah, so to me, it's a tricky question. And then the moment we look into the digital footprint, it enhances my turnaround time, which is speed. It enhances my accuracy because I'm using API. The manual intervention is very minimal. Standardized process because I'm getting rid of all the non-value added activities. As an example, there's a lot of documentation required currently in the erstwhile process that we had. Moving digital would only need, let's say, Aadhaar number, PAN number, my EPFO number, and then we are done with most of things. The only document that we collect as an organization is only the ID card because that's what we use as an impersonation check, which obviously is an add-on because that feature was not there without the digital feature. So yeah, I'll take a pause and we'll probably have Piyush chime in if there's anything else to add here. And
Sure.
I look forward to see how the
Yeah.
result ends on that poll.
But as we can observe now, Piyush, now the second bar on the chart, which is about the verification accuracy, has gone up. Like this is the second most voted answer. How do you observe these answers?
Yeah. See, the first blue bar is definitely does not come as a surprise. It doesn't come as a surprise because I have been talking to many HR leaders, Satinder being one of them. Satinder is a pioneer in adopting digital transformation in the process. So I know that this is a real challenge. The second bar coming up, verification accuracy. Well, it's a real challenge, and I'll tell you why it is. This problem come where this problem comes in. There is one check which is called a criminal record check. Okay, criminal record can check can happen by the traditional process. You can go to a police station and find out if there is a police record available or not, or you can actually do an electronic e-court search, database search. Okay, now a person can actually move addresses, and in India, no, you won't find, not just in India, in any place you will not find processes by the police also being followed to the T. That is, to the home police station the records will not be there. Now you rely on the electronic records, which has millions of records online on e-courts, but with different addresses, you can actually, if you reduce your thresholds, you will have false positives. If you increase your thresholds, you will have false negatives. So the background verification process has to draw a balance somewhere. You can't punish people who are innocent, right? So you have to keep the bar high. So sometimes, false negatives can creep in, but you can't have false positives. You can't fire somebody for a crime that he or she did not commit. I mean, if I can put Pallavi Verma and I can put Noida, and Pallavi Verma, Noida can give me 10,000 results. Sorry, not 10,000, but maybe 500 results or 50 results. But you may not be that Pallavi Verma. So, yes, I understand. But as India gets more digitized, the digital infrastructure increases, accuracy problems will also kind of go down. Those are some limited perspectives.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you for those inputs, but also I want to understand from both of you, and maybe Piyush, you can answer this one first. If you look at the organized sector and the unorganized sector, where do you find the gap more, and how can this be filled in when it comes to verification? I mean, what is your sense of the prevailing reputation systems?
So if you look at organized sector, I mean, at OnGrid we follow, background verification or verification of white collar professionals, okay, versus verification of blue collar professionals. So one, the nature of checks are different. In white collar professionals, there may be more focus on employment records, education, etc. In blue collar professionals, there may be more focus on criminal record checks, address checks. I mean, it's just the industry, and depending on the industry profile, the staff profile, the checks can be different. For example, when you have security guards working for a company, which is moving doing cash logistics, there is a those guards are required to carry a gun. In order to carry a gun, you need a pasara license. In order to get a pasara license, you need to have a police verification done through the State Department. So reputation management systems also start, or should I say trust platforms, also understand some of these things, these variations between organized and unorganized sector, and are coming up to speed with respect to solutions that they create. So we have also gone through that whole journey where we started out with blue collar professionals, started working for logistics companies, e-commerce companies, drivers, transportation, and then slowly made a shift to white collar professionals. But and in white collar, in organized, you need to have a great employee experience, because an employee will judge the company by the day one experience of going through and entering and uploading documents and on the reputation management system of the trust platform. So yeah, different objectives for different people, but at the heart of it is the right methodology. You cannot compromise on accuracy. That's most important. And within that, you need to have low cost and low turnaround time. Those principles do not change, be it organized or unorganized.
Absolutely. We'll talk deeper into it. But meanwhile, I want to take a quick comment from Satinder. We're talking about transparency. If you look at it, the transparency gaps can contribute to lack of trust. How do you think can technology play a role in bridging this gap, in bridging and building that trust, be it the organized sector or the unorganized one?
Sure. So my view is that the reputation system that we're talking of is evolving right now. It's not at a stage where we want it to be. As an example, if I join an organization one, they would perform a background verification for me from a scratch, right? If I happen to move to another organization, let's say in about 5 years' time, they will have to conduct the same background verification for me completely, right? So there is no collaboration, so to say. And like a credit history that we have, right, we need to get into a situation where we start developing the background verification history to see who has worked where, so that we don't end up doing the same verification time and again. We reutilize the existing information available over the organizations, right? So and one of the factor that I think is probably playing out well on this is because right now clients wants background verification to be conducted in, let's say, last 6 months. They would only consider that report and not the one which was done, let's say, 5 years back. So which obviously is something that needs to change over a period of time when people adopt to the digital structure, do more collaboration, we have a robustness on the data, and that's how I think the industry will move. Is what I take as an input on this.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, Piyush, since you were in the presentation talking about the shift in background verification, now, how do you look at it from an awareness perspective, especially in the times of digital onboarding, virtual interviews, remote setup? How do you look at the entire scenario, and how do you see this changing? You said that, later when we go, like 90% of it will become instant, but where are we right now? Like, what is the ground reality?
I mean, things have already started moving. Satinder would know this, that there are new digital methodologies that are already being adopted. Whether we have on a scale of 0 to 100, I would say it's maybe 10% we are there. Because, like I said, there is an infrastructure limitation. But then it is the responsibility of players in the industry like us to go out and educate and also participate in this whole endeavor of creating India's digital infrastructure. For example, today we are talking of, let's say, DigiLocker. Already education records are getting issued on DigiLocker. But are 100% universities and colleges doing it? The answer is no. Is everybody in India on DigiLocker? The answer is no. Because DigiLocker is not something that you need every day, unlike a Paytm or a Google GPay, which are apps that you need daily on a daily basis. But slowly and gradually, as more awareness comes in, lockers like DigiLocker, eLocker is something that will get more adoption. Companies will issue like Satinder was talking about. Why is that every company has to verify employment credentials? So there will be, these verifiable credentials will get issued to people, and then every time they change a job, it's just a push of a button. No need to write an email to the previous company and then send reminders. It's just very 90s to do that. I think verifiable credentials is here to stay. From 10%, we will go to 50% in the next couple of years. In 5 years, we will see 90% of checks being done digitally.
Any comments, Satinder?
Yeah, so basically, I think the market dynamics will change. The players will change, and I'll give you an example for that. Let's say right now we have got many aggregators who are not the ones who are actually performing the BGV. Let's say if there's a client one who needs background verification to be done, the aggregator only plays a role of interacting between the client for whom the background verification needs to be done and the actual service provider who does the background verification. Now, as we move digital, and obviously the cost comes into play, those aggregator will move out of the situation. It will be a direct interaction between the service provider for background verification and the customers that I can see. So this is how the dynamics would look like in a future state. Maybe the players, the names that we speak of right now, who is the BGV players in the market, may change as we grow on the digital journey.
Sure. In fact, as we've understood that a lack of authentic background verification can result in a lost job opportunity or a service, could you tell us a little more about how do companies and individuals cope up with this situation?
So our erstwhile scenario where one company used to contract with one service provider. Now, if you look at the current dynamics, one organization works with multiple service provider. which means if the client has a requirement, they will give that to multiple service providers, and whosoever delivers fast with speed and accuracy will be the one to win it. So BGV is not about clearing the background verification; it's also about onboarding readiness. Can we make the candidate onboarding ready for a client to start working? So this is where I think the multiple service provider will have to play a little different role in terms of both speed and accuracy to ensure that we perform those background verification way in time to ensure they are ready for the onboard as soon as the client says go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through this session, we're also trying to, lay importance on the impact and, the implementation impact. So Piyush, since I want you to, come into this conversation again, if you could tell us, besides onboarding, how does the BJB help HR in streamlining processes and building effective communication between different stakeholders, between agencies, employers, and candidates?
Yeah. So see, compliance and onboarding is definitely the core objective. Okay. Onboarding, most companies have a policy where they need to do BGV for before onboarding. But there are some very interesting, byproducts of trust platforms or BGV that we have noticed, and our clients have come back to us and said, "Hey, you know what? You this using on-grid helped us in so and so way," and then we were surprised. That oh, it wasn't intended to do that, but it became a byproduct. For example, background verification essentially. So, for example, there's a check called permanent address check, where somebody goes and visits the house before onboarding to do that address verification. Now, one of our clients, they used to have this thing of sales guys going up absconding with the company inventory, which is the laptop, and then it was very very difficult for them to get those laptops back because they just disappeared. They did not give any notice period. They just left, and those their addresses could be in remote villages. But after they introduced permanent address verification, what happened is that their rate of defaulting, of no not returning inventory, it came down because they knew that okay, when I joined, somebody had actually turned up all the way to my doorstep. And who is there at my doorstep? My parents. I don't want any harassment, so I better give my laptop. So it can actually be prevented rather than kind of doing like a post facto thing that a crime has not been committed. It also reduces the chance of any kind of fishy behavior. Similarly, there are these, we talked of employment credentials getting issued. Now, if I have worked in a company for 2 months and I did not get along well with the company, I did something wrong, or whatever. Nobody knows who's saying the truth, but I can just knock off that whole experience from my CV. So it will never get verified as part of employment verification because I'm not even claiming it. But with digital verifiable credentials, you can actually check some of those gaps, CV validation. So some very interesting other things are happening besides onboarding as far as BGV is concerned. And
Satinder,
record
can you
keeping.
recall?
The
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah, the
But
last
I
thing is
want to,
record keeping. I mean, some clients have told us that after we started BGV or e-locker, on grid or e-locker, our own discipline to keep full complete records has improved because we are the ones who are putting pressure on them. We are saying we can't complete unless you resolve this insufficiency. So with sufficient information, the discipline naturally comes to do 100% record keeping.
sure.
Satinder, you may want to
Yes,
add if there are any
Yeah,
yes,
byproducts.
yes.
I
We would
think you
like to hear
covered
more
well.
from you.
Yeah, but two more benefits. One core benefit is with the digital landscape coming into play, that hidden or undisclosed employment no more exists. So employees or candidates cannot hide the employments that they have worked, and if they had any wrongdoing at those organization, it would still get caught if we do a, let's say, EPFO search or a PF search or a 26CS likes of. So hiding any or undisclosed employment is going to be very easy for us to fetch. That's a core benefit, one of them. The other is more preventive, like you said. So having a bad apple join the organization, and then we look at the termination cost, the whole process around it, and then obviously there's a cost to hire, which means that we have to replace that candidate, And more than that, the experience is because you've already put a face in front of the client, and then you go after, let's say, a week or so, saying, no, client, this is the one who's not clean on the BGV, so we need to abort or terminate. That also impacts the overall experience that we have with our customers. So it's important to have to be more proactive and solve for those than to resolve at a later stage, which may include a lot of stakeholders and obviously the reputation at a stake.
Well, these are some advice that we can actually pick up from Satindra. But also, we would like to hear from you some of your own experiences over the years, like in terms of what were the challenges that you faced at, with regards to background verification. So, if you could enumerate any such past incidents or something.
Sure. So I'll divide that into two. One is business challenge, another is operational challenge. So business challenge was on data security and cost. We were looking at ways to minimize or eliminate the cost of background verification, right? That's on the business side. And then from an operational perspective, it's important to have accuracy and speed of delivery so that we can have more productivity being baked in within the same set of employees that we have. Yeah, with that, obviously, we hunted for the organizations who could enable us to do background verification faster. And like I said, I must have reached out to at least 10 plus service providers when we were evaluating this. And while everybody agreed that this is a good concept to get in, but most of them were reluctant because they felt that it will, cut on their revenue. It's going to cannibalize what they're earning right now, but they are missing the big picture. Unless they get into the game, it's going to be a problem. So yeah, I would say it's going to be accuracy, speed, cost, and data security. That were the key drivers for us to evaluate a new solution for background verification.
Sure. And talking about speed, I think it's a good time that we have the second poll, which actually will capture the current turnaround time that different organizations are facing for background verification. So I would request the team to put up the second poll, and I'll read out the options for them to choose. The question says, "What is the current turnaround time for background verifications?" First option being same day, 1 to 3 working days, or is it 4 to 6 working days? Or something more than 7 days, which is like a 7 plus working days for you. Let's see how the results pan out, and then I'll quickly take up inputs from both my speakers. So let's have the poll on the screen. The process is the same. All you have to do is go to meti.com, put in the code, and then take part in the poll.
Meanwhile, the poll comes up, Pallavi, I just wanted to add to what Satinder was saying. So, from a service provider standpoint, Satinder, uh, we understand that some of the things we just can't charge artificial rates. I mean, end of day, there is a database, there is a data source, and we are essentially transmitting factual information. If we are not efficient, that cost will go up. If we are efficient, that cost is very minimal. Somewhere I think the larger picture is that there may be other things where one can focus on, like platform or product led growth is can be very huge. There are things that are not very input output kind of things. For example, a social media check, is some candidate displaying bias with respect to gender, caste, religion? Those are the things that can we can kind of go into. But eventually, yeah, that's a reality that one cannot keep on taking that money for which you are just transmitting factual data points.
I think it's a mindset issue that will change as the market evolves
Yeah.
around this.
But if
Okay,
I
let's
say
look at.
how positive are you of this change? Like how much time do you think it will take? Piyush earlier said that we are already there's a shift happening, but still, how long will we have to wait for this?
I would say the shift has started. It may take from months to years, depending upon the adoption that the organization would want to get in. But my sense is, since this is going to become the key driver to cut down the cost and obviously bring in more efficiencies, it's not going to be long enough before we see that change in the industry.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we're facing some difficulty there for the poll. Meanwhile, I'll just go on with the conversation before we have the poll on screen. I also want to take up, Piyush, your view on your vision, in fact, for verification methodologies in India. You did talk about it earlier, but talking also the impact on data security going ahead. How do you look at that, and what is your vision?
Yeah. So see, two things that, so when we say that background verification is going to become more platform driven, anybody who's in a platform business cannot ignore the importance, increasing importance of data security and data privacy. Okay. Now there are some certain principles of data security and data privacy that one has to follow. Principle number one, consent. Yes, we are going digital, but how are we taking consent? Is there a way for a candidate to give electronic consent? For example, if the credential is issued on a locker, is there like a notification that goes to the candidate? Second, from a security standpoint, are these platforms encrypting data? For example, Aadhaar number. Aadhaar number is a sensitive number. Okay, it's not private like a password, but at the same time, it is not meant for public display on this thing. So Aadhaar Act and guidelines by UIDAI clearly specify that Aadhaar number has to be stored into a secure data vault. In your business tables, you cannot have Aadhaar number. It has to be stored in an encrypted format, and you, even if you display those last three, 4 digits. Now, these are some of the, this is not rocket science, but service providers will have to re- take cognizance of that. They have to respect that those security and privacy choices that a candidate makes, and for the organization also. Third thing is purpose limitation. Is the data being used only for the purpose for which it is getting collected? Again, very, very important principle of DPDP Act, or which is again derived from somewhere the GDPR regulations. Uh, Data minimization. Do I need to collect a field called religion? No, of course I don't need. I only collect those data fields or documents that are required for the purpose of verification. Right to forget. Now, while Satinder did say that, it will be very difficult for somebody to hide, but the fact is, with increased consciousness about privacy, people will also say on the PF portal my employment record for 2 months is there. But, and we will have to unfortunately balance privacy along with that data security. So,
Correct.
but privacy and security will be very, very important, and no service provider can ignore it at all. In fact, we have to remain ahead of the curve when it comes to security and privacy, be it encryption, be it decentralization, blockchain, and all that. One has to go for those things, but
Well,
not
thank
make
you
it
for bringing
complex.
up.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Like it should be, one should be able to explain it to other people that this is how we do security. Yeah, sorry, I just.
Well, I was saying thank you for bringing up the privacy part because we haven't really touched upon that. So I want to get a quick comment from Satinder on the privacy concerns, and also if you want to, share a comment on the vision for companies in India when it comes to verification methodologies.
See, I think one of the again advantage since we are looking at APIs, the the touch of hands right on any specific data points is reduced. In a erstwhile environment, let's say if I need a background verification for a candidate, I would ask the candidate to fill up a physical form. It will then float within my organization to various departments. Then it'll go to the BGV service providers. They may also have a subletting of their field staff who would have access to it. So all that thing is now taken care of. All we need to do is we need to one collect very minimal information from the candidate. Second, that information can go straight to an API and fetch a result without having any manual intervention, right? So this ensures that the information is secured and obviously can be archived once the purpose is taken care of. So yeah, from that perspective, I think this is going to be beneficial for security as well. Okay. And the other point that probably I'll touch on, maybe I'll go a double click on the cost, or rather the turnaround time. No, as we see the turnaround time, it's not only about completing the background verification on time or quickly. It's also about identifying what is the right time to trigger a background verification. Do we want to do it at the recruitment stage? Do we want to do it at a client interview stage? Do we want to do it at a profile creation stage? And what checks do we do at what stage? So it has to be combination of this that will make it more effective for the business to figure out, what checks to be done at what stage, so that one, the cost is also minimized in the overall structure, and then we have the required outcome that needs to be done. So the third element, which we conveniently skip out, is the document collection process. It typically takes about 2 to 3 days for any candidate to fill up a form and then submits the documents for education, for employment, and all of that. With the digital landscape coming into play, most of the documents are going to go away. It is only the ID, probably basically because we would want to look at the face match and do an impersonation check in terms of who's the candidate who was there in the interview, and the document is it for the same person or not. But apart from that, everything else, which is a non-value added, can be taken off the process. So yeah, so when we look at the turnaround time, we also look at how do we minimize the touch time on non-value added activities throughout the process, which also includes a report review. Let's say if some report is being generated manually, somebody on the other side have to review it before we submit to the client. But if it's a system generated, the chances of accuracy is high. It would be 99.9% unless there's a system glitch or a wrong input, which obviously can also be validated as a part of the rules that we bake in. Yeah, so that's on the double click of the turnaround time that I thought I'd just bring it as a clarity from an operational perspective.
Sure, and we can see some comments also coming in. So we have an audience question, Satinder, if you want to take this one up. This is by Vijay, and the question says, how can we do criminal and education verification digitally?
Okay, I think it's a great question. In some form, Piyush has already touched on this. So, from a criminal perspective, we have got e-codes available throughout India. So it is now faster, and then it can be done real time. The only time you have to evaluate is when it is a false positive, which obviously can also be filtered on in a couple of minutes, if not hours. Right. So, answer to criminal check is an e-code. For education, I think that the system is getting developed or evolved around the DigiLocker. So all the education, if you notice, even the board exams result last year were announced on the DigiLocker as well. So I think the adoption towards that is being worked out by the government of India to figure it out how do we do it. And as we speak today, I think 25% of the checks that we do gets through digitally for education, while there is still a 75% which requires a lot of other integrations or many universities will come into play on that, which will work it out. Okay. I hope that answers, Vijay.
All right, so we'll now take up the poll. And as I was reading out, I'll try to present the poll at my end. Let's see how the answers roll. So just allow me a second to share the screen and share the poll with everyone here.
Yeah, the poll
It's
has not
interesting
exactly
to see the
been real
response.
time. The turnaround time for launching the poll has increased a bit.
It's like, yeah, you have to look at the right time.
Yeah.
So I think we're unable to project it on the main stage, but I'll try to do it in a while. Sorry for all the technical glitch and the inconvenience.
But we can take audience question if there's any between
Yeah.
me and Piyush.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. Meanwhile, as we try to project the poll here, if at all you want to talk about one word of advice as we're moving towards the conclusion of the session, so Piyush, I would request you to, give your piece of advice to all the HR leaders who are watching this conversation, as to, who are actually dealing with these problems of increased hiring time and glitches. We're also facing a glitch here. Any comments there? Meanwhile, as I try to fix the poll.
Yeah. So see, my this thing. So as the co-founder and CEO, of course, my topmost priority is client experience. And sometimes clients come to me if they have an issue, and then I try to give my suggestions with respect to what should be the framework that they should look at when they are going with for BGV. For example, the first question that one needs to answer is, why are we doing BGV? Is it for safety? Is it for HR compliance? Is it for ISO compliance? Once you have a why clear, then you can go to when and what. So when, which Satinder also said, before joining, before offer letter, or after joining in the first week. That answer needs to be clear, and it can be two different answers for two different staff categories. Third is what? Choice of checks. Which are the checks? I Am I doing the same checks for everyone, or am I saying that okay, up to manager one or band five, I will do these checks. Beyond that, I will do these three checks. Then finally, it's the how. What are the methodologies? Like how are you evaluating who should be your background verification partner? So try and go deeper into the methodologies and understand, But one thing I can say for sure is that Indian background verification platforms are not just going to be limited to India. Like many other sectors, Indian startups and Indian companies are going to create platforms for the world, and you will see that difference in background check and turnaround time, not just in India, but globally, that change is about to come.
Thank you for that answer. And same question I would put up to Satinder as well. Your word of advice for the HR leaders watching this session.
I would say one word response is control. So when we get into the digital footprint, we have got good control of what's happening because the information doesn't flow anywhere except for where we want it to, which is through APIs, right? So you have a complete control of what's happening in the process, and the effectiveness of that process can definitely be managed. So yeah, so I would say when we look at the overall re-engineering of a process, we also need to figure out, do we have a control of what's happening? Because the moment we lose control of any of those sections, we don't know what impact it would have, and most likely negatively, on the overall structure. So yeah, so it's important to have that sense when we deploy any technology or any solution, and irrespective of whether it's a background verification or any other tech solution for that matter.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you so much. I really apologize for the glitch in the poll. We were unable to project the poll. But thank you for all the insights that you both shared. And thank you to our audiences as well for being participative. And thank you for your comments and also interacting with us through the poll. Thanks a lot. And I hope we can try to make the sessions even better and more participative. Let us know what you think of this session. Thank you, Satinder, and thank you so much, Piyush. We'll have to close the session now. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
Pallavi.
for
Thanks
coordinating,
for hosting
Pallavi.
us. Yeah.
Nice talking to you, Satinder.
Same
Bye
here,
bye.
Piyush. Please. See you.